And welcome in. Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to Mount Rushmore Mondays. I am your host, Nick Teodoro, the show where every Monday, well, not every Monday, every other Monday or periodically every Monday, we talk about our top four in professional wrestling. This week, we got a very special one headed your way, factions. And I thought to myself, who better to talk about factions than someone who's been in some teams, or at least one team and a great team, who would know, ex-soldier, ex-military. Let's bring him in, our buddy from If We Had the Pencil, Sean. What's going on, Sean?
What is going on? Let's do this. I'm already jacked up on Red Bull. I know I jumped the gun because you didn't get to ask, but I'm pumped up for this one.
Well, it's a different show. I mean, I can still drink on the show, but it's a different type of show. You know, this is our top four. So that's what we're doing. This week we are doing factions. So ladies and gentlemen, Sean, welcome in. Welcome to
Who's your hero? Who's your king? Who's the one that makes you swing? Four faces carved in stone, the legends that we all own. Power slams and flying knees. Who brings the crowd down to its knees? Mount Rushmore Mondays. Who's your top four? Legends at the ring, leave you wanting more. Mount Rushmore Mondays, standing tall, the greatest of all time. They've answered the call.
Sean. Are you ready?
I am ready.
I am pumped. I'm pretty excited for this too. I'm curious to see who you got your way. But yes, so it is Mount Rushmore. So we, just to clarify, because this has been very controversial on this show before, on all my shows, apparently there's controversy. And as Eric Bischoff will tell you, controversy creates cash. But Sean, we are limiting it to WWE, WWF factions. So that's how we're doing it. So no WCW, no WCW, no ECW, NWA, whatever, New Japan, whatever.
You don't want to start the NWO debate again?
Well, NWO is in this debate because they were in WWE. So we will discuss, a lot to discuss as people are chiming in the chat. Of course, Reese is already starting with the Hart Foundation. We'll get to it. Nikki, my co-host on my show on Friday, the Nick Club Wrestling Happy Hour, 6 p.m. She also has another show, Lipsticks and Lariats, all ladies show that she's doing. Very fun. But a lot going on. Let's get to it. So, Sean, before you reveal your first in your Mount Rushmore, you want to take us through, I guess, what your criteria is, I guess, how you evaluate it?
Okay, so check this out. Like, my criteria for this was I had to see them and feel them, right? So in other words, they had to elicit a response from me personally, right? So I know we're not talking about that, but the Four Horsemen, right? We all know they were great and probably one of the greatest factions ever. However, before my time, never really experienced them. And then I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings here in a second. The Hart Foundation didn't resonate with me. So, like, spoiler alert, they're not on my list. But, and then finally, the rule 2 for me was they either had to put young talent over or they had to have an impact on pop culture. Those are the two biggest things that are out there.
Now, when you say put young talent within the faction or outside of the faction, or both, is that?
Either way, just you kind of see a theme as I kind of navigate this. We'll see, like, you know, certain factions are there to put the younger talent over. Some factions just transcend pop culture, right? And we'll get into it. Or they reflect culture at the time. So but it had to be something I saw, experienced, and kind of lived through, and it kind of had to stick with me. Those were my big ones. So that's why I had to have that criteria, because we could talk like metrics all day, like, oh, this faction had X number of championships and they went this long, blah blah blah. But like, I didn't feel that, so I'm not passionate about it. So that's why I say that there's got to be a qualifier on there.
I feel you on that, and that's kind of for like similarly how I picked mine. It's who I experience, and that's what this show is about. It's very subjective. Who I experienced and who made me feel something in some kind of way. While I watch, because again, I'm sure before my time, and even the periods, I think we all have some dark periods where we don't watch as much wrestling, like where there was great factions that I just didn't see, and but didn't affect me, and I didn't have that nostalgia with it or that feeling with it. So, so we'll see. But let's get to it. Who is your number one, or who do you want to talk about first? Not necessarily in any particular one.
So my number one is Evolution. And by the way, these are in no order. This is just the order I want to give them. So I'm not saying Evolution's the greatest ever. I want to quantify that. But no, Evolution's my number one, because the multi-tiered generational talent there is just top notch. And honestly, let's not forget, Batista was like carrying around a lockbox for, whatchamacallit, Devon,
For
right?
Batista,
Like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like, and Randy
Batista.
Orton wasn't Randy Orton that we know today and love. And like, this faction, this is what I'm talking about bringing that young talent out, right? They hooked him up with Triple H and Ric Flair, and next thing you know, there's a rocket ship on them both, and they went from being just dudes to being Hall of Famers. And then the storytelling with that faction was just so good. So good. And the memes that came out of it.
The breakup, the thumbs down. We still use the thumb down on our show. Like the breakup of when Orton won the belt and the jealousy that Triple H had with him, and like again, like pairing Flair with Batista at the time, who needed somebody to kind of guide him in the right direction. You could argue, and what all four of them, even like post, like even Flair, like post that group still ended up doing in WWE is crazy. And they ran roughshod on Raw forever. Was it like all that stuff? Because Batista was brought in as the hired hitman to take out Goldberg. That was that end of that, right? That was basically the beginning-ish of that group. Was that's how I remember it, is he was the hired hitman. He took out Goldberg's ankle, I want to say.
Ooh. Yeah. Don't quote me on that.
And like that's what, because no one knew. Triple H had a bounty out on Goldberg. He couldn't do anything, and like to get him, and we were wondering who was going to answer it. And then he showed up and looked jacked as hell. And actually, Batista dwarfed Goldberg at that point in time. And it like just completely changed my opinion on Goldberg too. At the time, I was like, oh shit, like Goldberg's not as big a deal as I thought he was. Nikki said one of the best entrance music. Yeah, Evolution is a mystery. Oh, that raspy voice, Lenny.
But
yeah, I feel you on that one. That's a pretty good one. That's a pretty good one to start us off. Well, again, it's completely subjective here, and I'm gonna talk about one might be a little controversial as we move on, because I threw it up in the poll, by the way, and 100% unanimous decision that Evolution should be on the Mount Rushmore. This next one's going to be controversial. I don't know if it's going to be unanimous whatsoever. But for me, when you talk about factions and groups that kind of affected WWE, and this is a group in a very, very short period of time was able to just really captivate the attention of the audience, me particularly. It was a group of nine guys that had a spin-off show on NXT, an experiment, for me, the Nexus. I absolutely loved this whole storyline. Wade Barrett was one of the final two, right? It came down to Wade Barrett and was it Bryan Danielson? I can't remember who the other last contestant was. And Barrett was cutting this great promo. He won the contract, and he comes out. He gets a title shot against John Cena, he gets a title shot against whoever the champion is. John Cena was at the time because when is John Cena never a champion, and he ends up coming out, and it looks like it's going to be a stare down moment between the two, and all of a sudden, Michael Tarver, top left guy, pops up with his like ninja mask on, whatever he does. And then all of them surround the ring, basically ending Raw. They tear up everything. They choke Justin Roberts out, which got Daniel Bryan fired for a period of time, which may or may not have been a work. This group, at the end of Raw, there was matches that they couldn't complete. They had the anonymous Raw GM because they took out Vince McMahon. They took out they took out all these big name talents. And to me, in a short period of time, and what's crazy about this group is we had Justin Gabriel on our show last year. They never had a WrestleMania moment. They broke up into two factions after this. You had the core and you had the new Nexus. So to me, what they were the original beat up John Cena. Like when AJ Styles and I almost called them the Brood, the Club were beating up John Cena. Like this to me was the first group that John Cena like really started putting over and actually let kick his ass. And they ran roughshod for a while, and this ended up benefiting Sheamus most of this run. Sheamus's first world title run was like aided by this whole group. So to me, I don't know. I really love the Nexus. I think what they were able to do in that short period of time, if they were given much more time, who knows? But it got over. Again, you look at Danielson in the group. Wade Barrett should have been way bigger a deal than he is, but look at him now. He's still running, doing great on SmackDown. You have Ryback in this group. Otunga had a little bit of a run. I don't know. Everyone, even past this group, ended up having a good amount of success. So, to me, I'm throwing them on there, and I know Nikki said this is controversial.
Oh, we haven't
But
even started controversial yet.
Do you have any Nexus memories? Or
I really don't. Like, the army giveth, the army taketh away, and like there's gaps, especially during the PG era, where like I don't get much. You know what I mean? So like off doing great and wonderful things, but it really impacts my wrestling stuff. So that that's kind of how it works out for me. So I don't have, I mean, obviously the talent's there. I remember Nexus, but not like, not solidly there. So
that's fair.
Yeah,
That's fair.
I got nothing, man. I got nothing.
No, fair. I mean, not everyone. Again, that's what this show's about. Like, it's all completely subjective. So to me, like, again, what they were able to do, it really captivated me for that year of Raw. But again,
I think this goes back to my criteria where like I had to see it and feel it, right? Like you can look at that group and see the talent that's there, right? Like Wade Barrett, Bryan Danielson, all that stuff. You're like, damn. But in reality, if you didn't see it, experience it, feel it, you kind of miss out. So
yeah,
it's still a solid choice, I think. I get where it would be controversial, but
the chat disagrees. The chat says absolutely no, unanimously no. But that's ideal, again. But that's why, to me, again, it's a group that I absolutely adored while they were there, especially because I hated John Cena at the time, and this is the first group that actually got to beat up John Cena. But I digress. Sean, who's next up for you?
Okay, this for me is kind of my youth in a nutshell, and I really this was one of the first groups I distinctly remember, and that is the Nation of Domination. Look, and a lot of people are just going to be like totally like, what are you talking about? But you have to look at the talent pool that was there with that one, especially the original iteration. So you had you had D'Lo Brown, you had Farouk, you had the Godfather. I can't call him his other name. He's always the Godfather to me. And you had The Rock, right?
You call him Kama Mustafa?
Kama Mustafa. Or Papa Shango back in the day. But anyways, I digress. But I think it's important, this is where we start dipping our toes into cultural relevance at the time. And Vince was never one to pass up on an opportunity, right? So around this time, this is when, so Sean went to a city school, right? And this was big. This is like around the time, like the Malcolm X movie with Denzel Washington was coming out. African culture was like actually becoming like very prominent in society. And then we're going to get into the putting the talent over. We have all heard, seen, watched the horror stories that are Rocky Maivia. Okay, like
I like his music though. His theme was pretty good. It was pretty cool, but his attire was ridiculous. I don't know.
Rocky Maivia was like he's what Cody Rhodes is to me now at times, where he's like, gosh, or Sami Zayn, honestly, like, gosh darn it, I'm just gonna try, and it's just like, I'm just happy to be here and I'm gonna give it my all. And it's just like, shut the F up. So fast forward, he joins the Nation of Domination, and from it was like the catalyst that made him The Rock. And like, when you look at that group outside of D'Lo Brown and later iterations, like Mark Henry eventually ends up joining that group as well. So like, there's, ironically enough, you and I had the conversation about this. And then I noticed on social media today, Mark Henry is out there making the argument that Nation of Domination should be in the WWE Hall of Fame, which I was like, how is that for timing? But I think that like this one kind of checks both my boxes, where it kind of touched on the cultural side, but it also like, you cannot, I mean, D'Lo Brown honestly became significant out of that group too. And like, even though he's not a Hall of Famer, but like, I don't think D'Lo is who he is without that time.
Hold on, I think D'Lo won the hardcore and European, and he might have been tag champion too. Let me just check. Good old fashioned cage match here. Let me get D'Lo Brown. D'Lo Brown, is that how I spell? I didn't put the apostrophe in the right spot.
D'Lo, the first Eurocontinental champion.
He's from New Jersey. I didn't know that. Let's go.
Oh, he's one of yours.
Yeah, so European 4 times. I didn't realize he won it 4 times.
Yeah,
4-time European champ. He won the Intercontinental title too. Yeah, he did. So I was wrong. So he didn't win the hardcore title. He just won the European 4 times and the Intercontinental ones. But still, that's more significant than.
Oh my God, I totally forgot about that, Nikki. No. Her comment about The Rock gifting Farouk.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, that was great. Well, so you raise a good point. So this has such memories for me because The Rock joining the Nation was like right as I was getting right back into wrestling. And I remember it was the oh my gosh, Nation against Chains and Crush. What was that group? DOA? The biker group.
I know who. Yeah,
DOA, like Disciples of Apocalypse. Yeah, DOA, Disciples of Apocalypse. And he picks him. It was just weird because he picks him up. He picks him up and then gives him the rock bottom. I remember, and it was just kind of like a weird way of him doing it. But yeah, they say DOA. Andrew Brunswick in the chat saying D'Lo took all the bumps when headbangers were trying to figure out their finishes in training. Good point. Yeah, fair point.
They have the chest protector.
Oh my God! And then he kind of like it. Actually, kind of reminds me of what Grande Americano is doing now because he loaded it up, right? like it was like a metal plate at the end of it.
Which El Grande? No, that's a different show.
Oh man. So all right, so let's move along. My second is a personal favorite of mine. It could, if I had to rank him, just possibly number one in my heart. Everyone knows on our show how big a fan myself and my wife are of Bray Wyatt. So to me, gotta throw the Wyatts, the original integration, even with Braun Strowman in that group. To me, the Wyatts being part of a Mount Rushmore makes perfect sense. The way that they came back in, all those vignettes, WWE at the time for years wasn't building up people with vignettes like darker vignettes, like macabre type cult type characters. And the way that they came in, they debuted against Kane. Like that's at the time, that's the only, like, Undertaker was around, but he really wasn't around ever. So like you can't really debut against that. He's the best dark character to debut at the time, and they just took him out. And the way the gimmick that they played it up is like they were going to take him out and like brainwash him, and everything, all the storylines post that they had, even like their feud, the short-lived feud that they had with the Shield, which should have been much bigger than it was.
Yep.
All the mind games that Bray would play, and with, I almost called him Brody Lee, Luke Harper, and Eric Rowan being his muscle and his followers, and the way that like that original promo that he cut, because Nikki and I went back to it when the Wyatt 6 debuted, of like the way he speaks, the line he uses is like, I don't have followers, I only have brothers and sisters, all in the name of cause. I loved every bit of that. And the character that he put together was, a bit of the, oh my God, what's the movie that I'm thinking of? With Robert De Niro.
Oh, dadgummit.
He was going to put it in the chat. I'm blanking on it now. Cape Fear. But yeah, it's the character in Cape Fear, and oh my God, the guy's name's Dan Spivey, but now I'm forgetting his character in WWE at the time. But regardless, just putting this whole group together and the way that they were able to debut, the whole like Southern vibe, it just was eerie, and I loved it. It brought back those vibes from the early like 90s darker characters that I loved, that made me love pro wrestling.
Oh, it was by far. So I had them as an honorable mention in my notes because, like, first off, I am a Bray Wyatt can do no wrong guy. So, like, I mean, when we look back at everything that he has done, I mean, to think back to the original Wyatts, and then you also go back, even look at his work with the Firefly Funhouse and stuff like that. That work is just unbelievable. And like, he will forever be the king of vignettes, because like any of his videos and promos and all of that is just so enriched and good. And, WWE and wrestling as a whole has a really bad habit of like very superficial storytelling at times, right? I'm good, you bad guy bad, you know what I mean? And we don't get that like meat and potatoes, right? And that's, and when we get that in-depth, real deepness where we got to start thinking and we want a little bit more, and like, oh, I really want to understand this. And he gave you just enough to keep on sucking you back in, pulling you back in, pulling you back in. And he did the same thing with the Funhouse too, right? Like, you get a little tidbit here, a little tidbit there. And even when they started going QR codes and stuff like that, you're like, I want more. So, oh, yeah, I have no problem with this pick whatsoever, because chef's kiss. Love the Wyatts.
Reese made a good point. He said Wyatt's influence was Jake Roberts and Taker. So are we surprised by his manic promos? Like, yeah, I loved it. Yeah, it was so great.
It was it was a contrast, right? Like you had something different to the rest of the roster, and I love that stuff. Like those things that stand out to you, like I hate to say it, like Danhausen, right? Like he's just I think Matt and I talked about it last week on our show. Like we were like, he is like the what did he call him? The something to the effect of like the sherbet, right? The palate cleanser. You know what I mean? And like the Wyatts were kind of that, like just something to change it up a little bit, get you out of the rut. And it was, I love the Wyatts. So, whew.
And so does the chat. Unanimous. Finally, I get a win for Nick. 100%. We got one. We got one. John, who's your number 3 for you?
All right. So I have to caveat this one. So this one is actually tied to my Nation of Domination pick. And the reason it is because in all of my wrestling watching, everything that I have done, nothing will make me laugh harder to this day, anytime I watch it, than DX cutting a promo on Nation of the Domination dressed up as the Nation of Domination. It was by far the funniest damn thing I have ever seen in wrestling. And it makes me laugh every time I go back and watch it. So DX needs to be up there. Now, there's a lot to DX, right? But when we were talking about when I gave my criteria, I talked about pop culture, and this is the deal, right? DX transcended so much, and they didn't even go long. That's really the kind of nuts thing about it. They had like 2 years, maybe total. You know what I mean? And like, you know, so
which still is pretty good shelf life, though. I mean, even for like today's standards, that might as well be 10 years.
That's true, but like,
but I mean, yeah.
The original iteration, and that's the beauty of this one. The original iteration of DX with just Shawn Michaels and Triple H was just awesome. Like they're just running around being like two idiots.
In China,
like,
let's not forget China, ninth wonder of the world.
China,
because China
is from my hometown
group too.
But yes, China definitely. So like I love, and if you look at their arc, it's just brilliant, right? Like so. We go through the whole thing. Mike Tyson joins DX at one point right before WrestleMania. You know, he becomes guest referee. He flips on DX. Shawn Michaels' back is jacked, like hot mess jacked. And Stone Cold goes over. So that's when Stone Cold finally gets the world title. And like that all starts a thing. But then we fast forward and then we get, you know, New Age Outlaws. We get, you know, X-Pac, 1, 2, 3 Kid, insert name here.
I would argue that the X-Pac that came back was more successful than anything 1, 2, 3 Kid ever did.
Correct. More successful, in my opinion, than what he did in WCW as well. So,
6.
Yeah. 6-pack, X-Pac, whatever. It's all the same. Tomato, tomato. But then we get in, you know, there's, to this day, people still do the crotch chop. To this day, like wrestlers are doing the crotch chop. And like when people were, you know, this is when wrestling became mainstream, right? You either walked around with an Austin 316 shirt or a D-Generation X69 jersey. And the promo gold that came out of that faction is beyond reproach. And then to add to it, them invading WCW during the Monday Night Wars is next level incredible. Like them just outside the doors, beating on the arena where oh my God.
Well, so, reality TV at its finest, but what was great is it was a shoot promo, right? Like it was legit shoot promo. You didn't know what was going to happen. And like, even like to this day, when they asked WCW wrestlers that were there, they're like, we didn't know what was going on. Like we had to close the doors because they were going to, like, they literally would have walked in the arena, and they had people like WCW fans cursing off WCW. Like there was so many different layers to that like like, even Bischoff was like, mother effer. He's like, I knew like when they did that I was screwed. Like,
yeah, it's just, and this kind of ties back, since we're in this era now, right? It ties back to what I was saying about NWO. So like when you and I had our little off to the side like debate a little bit about NWO, you're like, well, we have to, you can only because we're focused on WWE, like we can only talk about NWO in the context of that. And I was like, well, do we? Because NWO, which was a brilliant faction, and yes, they came over, were the catalyst for DX does not exist without the NWO. WCW and NWO fired the first shot by forming the NWO. And that caused Vince to like kind of like be like, go nuts, guys. We gotta play catch up. And it was awesome. And it gave us gold, and the gold being DX.
Yeah, no, fair point. Let's see. The chat is actually, this is a shocker to me because I did not expect this, but the chat's saying no to DX on the Mount Rushmore. Ironically, I thought that would have been a unanimous one more for the chat because I
disagree.
Yeah, well, that's the thing
on that one.
Completely subjective. So,
Rick Rude was supposed to be an original member of DX.
Wait, say again?
Rick Rude was supposed to be an original member of DX.
Oh, yeah.
He was the Edge, but then he scurried off. But, it's just interesting to, for that group to think Rick Rude, and I was like, one of these things is not like the other. I just thought it was different. So.
Yeah, true. All right. So I'm going to go with a group that I think actually... I think they actually did have a match with DX. If I'm thinking correctly. I'm pretty sure they did towards the end of the run. But I digress. This group was brought in and actually is going to be kind of a centerpiece to WrestleMania this year, right? The main event of WrestleMania is going to be CM Punk defending the World Heavyweight title against his young boy, Roman Reigns, the man he's claimed that he brought in. So for me, I'm throwing up the Shield because they came in during Punk's match with Ryback at the time. I want to say Survivor Series in a Hell in a Cell, or maybe it was right before Survivor Series. It was like fall, but it was in a Hell in a Cell match or right before it. But taking out Ryback, taking out the whole roster, and then you're talking about 3 young guys coming up. Roman wasn't even supposed to be part of this iteration, but just running roughshod on the whole roster, even getting to the point where, like, they feuded with, what were they called? Not the corporation. They're what Triple H is, the Authority, right? They were the anti-Authority. First, they were the Hounds of Justice for the Authority. They were hired, right? They were brought in by Punk and Heyman, theoretically, but then they were hired out by the Authority as the hired guns, super over guys. Then they end up getting to a point where the crowd just loves them because Rollins is unbelievable in the ring. Ambrose is known for his crazy street fighting style and everything else that he did on the indies, and Roman Reigns is related to who. So what they ended up doing beyond that, they had to turn him face, and then they had to break him up. The whole breakup of the Shield, Seth Rollins, like we all thought, I don't know about you, like at the time, we're like Dean Ambrose. He makes the most sense as a heel. Like he's going to be the one to turn
thought that. Everybody thought that. They thought it was going to be Ambrose, and it wasn't.
And it catapulted Seth Rollins' superstardom. Like that heel turn for Seth Rollins, that him becoming Money in the Bank, him turning on Roman, and literally the storytelling that they do to this day with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins and steel chairs, whether it's the Bloodline with Sami Zayn, like all the little iterations, everything is like a steel chair has something to do with it. And granted, it is generally the weapon of choice for most.
Well, the callbacks, though, like if you think about it, right? even today in recent freaking manias, we get the callbacks. We get every now and again the Shield music will pop out. You know, Seth Rollins like using it to his advantage. Like the longevity and like the longevity of the Shield is without a doubt just impeccable. Impeccable because like and the star power is there, right? Like somebody saw it back in the day and went, "Yep, all three of those." Like, but I mean, on the flip side, you kind of brought up the Bloodline. Like, I actually didn't pick Bloodline because I feel like what that became kind of it seems so Roman centric that I like was like, it had a great story, but no, you know. So I don't know if you had it anywhere in your list or your mentions, but like, yeah, I can't give Bloodline props because they didn't put anybody over either. So like, and this group was just like, yep, all of them are going to be Hall of Famers. So without a doubt.
Yeah, and I think it'd be really interesting. I don't know if it'll happen, but I could totally see at some point in time Ambrose, John Moxley coming back to WWE and having some unfinished business with all like, well, probably more likely Rollins now because I think Reigns is done, but like, you know, one more match with Rollins when they're both at completely different spots in their career, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure he'll bleed in that match too.
Oh yeah, no, he's never not.
He walked out to the ring, the blood started going. It just happened. So.
The chat, ironically, this is what I'm trying. I thought the chat would agree with me on this one and put them on the Mount Rushmore. The chat's not putting them on Mount Rushmore either.
Really?
Yeah.
Man.
Interesting. Tough crowd. Sean, who's your number 4?
All right. So this is my controversial pick because I like to be different. Judgment Day. And I'm going to tell you why. So what it was originally founded to be was to start putting over talent that really wasn't getting over, right? So like Damian Priest kind of existed. Finn Balor kind of fell off to the backside. Rhea was just kind of gaining steam, and that's kind of how it all started with Edge of all people. And then the fact that they had such longevity, the fact that there's only one person in that picture that you just showed that's still in Judgment Day, yet they are significant, right? And I think this is like the poster child for putting people over. I mean, look at the current iteration right now. Roxanne Perez, you know, started getting ahead of steam before she got hurt. Hey, night and day for Raquel Rodriguez, right? Even Dom, to a limited extent, he managed by leveraging Judgment Day to go from Rey Mysterio's kid to Dirty Dom. Right?
Yeah.
Like, stop and think about that. That's significant. And his in-ring work has like massively improved, but he got to use the Judgment Day to become who he is now, which is we watched him grow up in Judgment Day. You know, JD McDonough
he's still eating chicken tendies. Let's not get too crazy. He didn't grow up that.
Well, now that Roxanne's back to bring it to him, you know.
Yeah.
Whew. And then you add Liv Morgan in there.
But to your point, like this group has been together for almost 2 years now. It's got to be 2. And from what started to what became, and you kind of touched on this earlier with DX and the different iterations, and still successful under the same banner name, whatever you want to call it. Like this iteration, the one that had Priest, Balor, Rhea, and Dom had so much gold. They had a whole different level.
Don't forget about R-Truth. He was part of this iteration.
Yeah.
You ask R-Truth, R-Truth will tell you. In fact, he just mentioned it recently about his time going back with the Judgment Day.
Nikki said you're talking her into it right now. But yeah, to your point, I mean, you have all the gold here, right? And then the second iteration, the post kicking out Rhea Priest, where Liv joins up with them. is a whole other level of like they ran Raw for a year straight. Now you could, I mean, the devil's advocate, you could argue like maybe the Raw roster was weak enough that they just needed them in every segment, but they did run Raw. Like that was their slogan for however long, but it was true. So I mean, yeah, and you talk about people getting over them by your standards. Yeah, it's a fair point. And you make a very valid case and a valid point. And when you're talking about what they did, and we're limiting this to just WWE, WWF, like for them, when you compare them to other factions, like we talked about, like just for the time WWE, they did much more than the NWO did.
Yeah,
way more than the NWO did.
Well, like, and the detractor from NWO is honestly that by the end of the NWO run in WCW, everybody was a member of the NWO in some way, shape, or form. It just got ridiculous, right? Whereas, like, not everybody's part of Judgment Day. You have people that are Judgment Day adjacent. But, like, even, like, you brought it up with Liv joining Judgment Day, the turn on Rhea, and Dom just kind of, you know, sliding off that way until Stephanie Vakir moves Liv out. Anyways.
Well, like JD McDonough is getting over I mean, granted, like breaking his lung helped him, but like again, like a lot of that stuff, this group has helped elevate him to a whole other level.
And then I think too that like the beauty of Judgment Day is what the original vision was for Judgment Day, they are actually succeeding in. Which was taking talent that would have kind of been mired in the meh of the roster and really making them something special. Like I said, do you honestly think Raquel Rodriguez would be seen as anything like in the championship picture unless based on her time and her character work in Judgment Day? And, you know, I think the only one you can make an argument that she'd be big either in Judgment Day or not is Roxanne Perez, honestly. Well, Liv Morgan too, but that kind of stands on. But I think the Liv and Dom story is always the underlying glue that holds Judgment Day together a little bit. Dom, honestly, is the catalyst for Judgment Day now, even though he wasn't originally.
That's fair. Fair point. You made a valid case. I don't think you made a valid enough case to sway the chat though, because they're adamantly against this theory.
But I ain't worried about that one.
I love it.
About that.
So I'm gonna go for the last one here. I gotta go with we talk about people that we watched and groups that we watched that really affected us. And growing up, Attitude Era was my jam, right? Watching all that. And the biggest faction, and we've talked about, you already talked about DX, Nation of Domination, Attitude Era faction, but to me, the biggest faction in that era and that helped create stars and also elevate other people, including Stone Cold Steve Austin being number one, I'm going the Corporate Ministry. Just look at this collection of talent, Viscera side. But Triple H, China, The Undertaker, Farouk, Bradshaw, the Big Boss Man. Like those names, Paul Barrett.
Isn't it? Or what was it? It starts with M.
Midian.
Or whatever.
Midian? Yeah, Midian was part of it, and then he became Naked Midian later on. but
it's all right. Mark became sexual chocolate. So.
But this group, because you had the ministry and they were doing all the dark stuff, and then you had the corporation, and both groups, honorable mention, I think, for me. But then when they joined together, and this is not even with Vince McMahon as the higher power, this group was just a whole other level. They ran, and this is not when Raw and SmackDown were divided and you had 6 different groups. They were on Raw, they were on SmackDown, they were running everything, and there was no one that could stop them except Stone Cold Steve Austin was like the only foil, and then you had like the Union as one of the little groups which disbanded off of like ex-corporation members. But to me, everything that they were able to do, this whole storyline, like the higher power leading up to the higher power was amazing. Ending up being Vince McMahon, which I knew was going to be Vince McMahon. Even as a kid, I was like, it has to be Vince McMahon. But just, you just didn't know, because now you have the owner of the company, you have the darkest character, the demon, the Undertaker that everyone's afraid of, and that whole group with the finances and the power. I just love this iteration of this group. And to me, the corporate ministry is one of the top tier factions in WWE history.
Didn't work for me, but I get it.
I get the ministry better than corporate ministry. Hold on, let me throw this one up in the chat. Here, one last poll. Do you have any memories of this? Any?
Not really. Nah, this is like right around the era. I hate to say this. This is right around the era of basic training and just getting my feet wet in the army. So this was one of the casualties of like, oh, I'm finally getting back to a regular life. And by the time I got there, this was already done. So,
oh man,
yeah,
everything that was going on with just the Undertaker and all these storylines, because you just knew something had to change. And Stone Cold, after all of that feuding with DX, he needed some big foil. He had some of the stuff with. We saw a little bit of it with Dude Love, like the Mankind's iterations, where they were trying to give him, like, not that Dude Love was a darker character, but you always knew that Foley had those darker characters in him. But they never gave him like a real big foil. So then they gave Austin the corporate ministry to run through. And I'm trying to remember if it's, it was right before. It was right before that story. I guess the ministry, corporate ministry, like blends together. But the sacrifice or the dark wedding of Stephanie McMahon, she's on the Undertaker logo, looking like.
I do remember
all that. Yeah, those storylines. That's to me, and it's like, oh, somebody save her! Somebody save her! Who's gonna save her? Stone Cold. He comes out and stuns everybody. So, like, to me, this is a group that absolutely captivated me for that whole year and a bunch of my childhood.
Oh boy,
settle down. Yeah, there's a lot of hate in the chat on this corporate ministry.
Yeah,
because I'm getting. The chat.
I know. I've been watching. I'm entertained.
This is what
I'm
happens.
definitely entertained watching you get lambasted right now. Like, I took my lunch.
I'm closing the poll adamantly against my corporate ministry pick. Well, you know what? Everyone wants to grill us. We want to hear everybody's votes. Let's hear who's your top 4. Let's open up the phone lines. Give me the link is in the description, but let me throw it in the chat.
I want to give credit, and I think it was Reese that brought this. Somebody brought up in the chat the Brood, and I was like, "That's a good one."
I thought about that too, but I don't remember. See, the biggest thing about the Brood that I remember is them joining up with the ministry. Is that they couldn't, like, they were gonna feud with the Undertaker, and then like they ended up just being the Undertaker's lackeys. Before we take a call, you want to do a quick honorable mention, or did you get all your honorable mentions out?
I got my honorable mentions out. Like I said, I kind of threw them out there. Like, I think there is an argument to be made about the Bloodline, but I don't think so. Like, I can't bring myself to it because I don't think the Bloodline did anybody any good. The Usos were already good. Solo Sikoa just kind of like his head popped up out of water after like everything ended with the Bloodline. I mean, maybe the biggest person to get elevated out of the Bloodline, honestly, was probably Sami Zayn. So like I kind of poo-poo on them a little bit. Like, yeah, they just don't. Honestly, honorable mention to the Hart Foundation. While I like understand their greatness, and Reese is gonna like throw things at his computer now. I have never been a Bret Hart fan. Like his character, like anytime I would watch him, especially in the lead up to like WrestleMania 13, because I'm Stone Cold all the way anyways. The lead up with him, he would get on my nerves so freaking bad. And then he went over to WCW, and I was like, get him off my TV. I just couldn't do it. So, like, I am not a Bret Hart fan. Like, I liked Owen. I like, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, but I could not do Bret. Bret never worked for me.
Let's kick it off. Let's get right to it. Let's kick it off fast and furious because he wants to talk a little. You're breaking his Bret Hart right now. Reese, did he freeze? Is he okay?
He's just giving me the stink eye right now.
I'm good.
Go ahead, Reese. Tell us, because I knew we weren't going to be able to go. I made sure that there was at least one.
Oh, God almighty. Okay. This is the greatest faction in WWE history. And it's not because of the man in the knee cast. It's the symbolism of what each member represents to the business as a whole. You talk about legacy, defining moments, character building, character growth, putting talent over, championships. There's no better success than the Hart Foundation. And you talk about you're a Stone Cold guy. Cool. There's no Steve Austin without Bret Hart.
That's fair. That is
without Owen. If Owen didn't drop him on his head.
That part too, unfortunately.
See? Bret Hart taking credit for Owen's work again. There we go.
But Bret Hart never injured anybody.
I'm going to look that up. I don't know.
It's a true fact. He's literally one of the safest workers of all time. Never injured anybody. Same as Baron Corbin. Or Bishop Dyer now, as he's called.
That's an interesting name drop to put next to Bret Hart, Reese. That's not really giving too much credibility to Bret Hart.
I'm just talking about safe workers.
You're trying to put over your
character work.
But also,
Dumbass Corbin is one of my favorite iterations of a character ever.
But here's another important thing. Talk about got on his nerves. That's what heel's meant to do at the time. But here's another important thing. When Bret became a heel, Bret's responsible for the greatest on-screen villain in wrestling. Everything that Steve Austin did, Bret did it first to Vince. The swearing, the language, the aggression,
punching him in the face.
Mm-hmm.
He never hit Vince
Bret.
with a bedpan, though.
No, he knocked him out with one punch instead. Like a real man.
Andrew Brundrick said he thinks Bret Hart actually broke Mr. Perfect's finger throwing him to the outside.
That was his own fingers he broke. Not perfect.
Yeah.
Mr.
Perfect. He can't break Mr. Perfect. He's too perfect. There's no way he breaks.
He's talking about 93 King of the Ring. No, Bret broke his own fingers in that match.
Like I said,
manic.
I don't disagree with the impact, but like I said, when I put the criteria on there, just because I never parts of the faction resonated with me, but as a whole, they never resonated with me. So that was kind of their disqualification. Like I fully acknowledge, but like I said earlier too, groups like the four. I know it's not. In this case, but like the Four Horsemen, like
they are the greatest faction.
I can recognize their greatness, but that it wasn't my era or something that stuck with me. Is all I was getting at.
That's fair. Reese. So besides the Hart Foundation, who else is on your Mount Rushmore?
I mean, to be fair, the Four Horsemen to me is the greatest faction ever. So I'll let you have that one. I mentioned in the chat right at the start, the Brood. Like for me, the Brood is, and I'm going to say this with comfort, the Brood is the last great faction that WWE's ever had.
The Brood.
Since they've for everything. Close second, I would say, is the Wyatts.
I love Wyatt,
it's
but
for
the
this.
Brood, see, like the Brood to me, like when I think back to the Brood, I can't think of anything that they were cool. Like I remember Christian winning the lightweight the cruiserweight. I think it was the lightweight
On his
champ.
lightweight title on his debut against Taka Michinoku.
Yeah, and like, but then post that, it was like there really wasn't much, and then they joined up with the Ministry. So to me, like them by themselves, they didn't do much.
Technically, they did, but what they brought was unique. So they brought mysticism. They brought dynamic light in, which most people associate with Taker. Not really. They brought, Andrew mentioned about the theme song. Absolutely spot on. It is monumental, but also it got 3 separate talents over in different ways. You brought 2 that became amazing singles and tag team wrestlers. You brought Gangrel over as a character as well. You talk about the bloodbaths. Ironic, Nikki. Like, the bloodbaths actually helped get talent over as well. Because you know, it's like who they all picked for bloodbaths. They were all champions or or became world champions. Think about that. Like they were targeting specific people.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I just don't. It's like to me, they never really like. Yeah, I get the blood. It was a different element of it, but it wasn't anything that was like, oh my god, they took over a show, or oh my god, like they were in the mid card, they were doing a lot. Even in the undercard, like I.
But look at what they still led to.
A lot of like Edge joining up with them was the biggest thing because like they were feuding together, right? Like and
they were, but there was a good swerve. It was a good swerve. Even like the way that they broke away from, even like when they broke away from the corporate ministry, which again, pain. Taker didn't even stand out in that faction. But there's elements like, for me, it's like how they talk about criteria, and it's about like what they represent. For me, the Brood, they were dark, but they were cool. But they also didn't. The one thing they never did was bore people. The Brood were never boring on TV, which is really important.
Yeah, but is that how much of that is to if you get extra? Bring Sean back in here. If you have extra,
they have to relate. You know what I mean? Like they have to relate. That's why the Brood were not. They're not a failure in that way at all. Like they genuinely were successful, and they done it whilst actually constantly changing. They were never the same. Even like town to town, they changed up the gimmick. They changed up the entrance. The entrance was never always the same. If you think about it, like that's what it was. You got to see people actually run with their gimmick rather than so much interference. That's the difference between a good faction and a great faction. That's why the Bloodline is crap and will forever be crap.
They didn't make our list. So
that's
you got a Brood and the Hart Foundation. Who else you got?
Number 3. I liked some mentions that were made tonight. I did like the Evolution one. Unfortunate to Mark Jindrak. I did like the Wyatt Family mention. Good shout. I liked the mention of X-Pac in China. As you can tell, I'm not fans of the other 2. next faction for me, though, I'm going to say this one hits close to home just because of the type of wrestling I like. It's short-lived, but it was just really good fun. Team Angle.
Interesting one.
Because you had, at the time, the greatest wrestler in the world, Kurt Angle. You had, even though I don't like him, you had Paul Heyman, who actually fit the faction really well.
Oh yeah,
You had Benjamin and Haas as a really good tag team, and they were the only member of Team Angle to retain a title and win a match at Mania that year as well, which showed confidence.
It did elevate.
Kurt was actually,
It did elevate.
Kurt was technically supposed to beat Brock. That's true. It did. Kurt was actually meant to beat Brock at WrestleMania 19. Spoiler.
You got Andrew Brunswick. You popped Andrew Brunswick with that one.
I love Team Angle. I love Team Angle, honestly. Generally one of my favorite teams. But it's also the fact is they actually got other talent over. And obviously, depends on how you look at it. Separate the talent from the cycle. It made Chris Benoit legitimate main event talent in WWE when he was slipping. It got the Guerreros over as a tag team as well. It got Matt Hardy over. Like, it helped him redevelop his character. It got Edge over even more than he already was. It got A-Train over. Generally amazing big man. It allowed the Big Slow to disappear.
You hate him. Stop hating on Paul White. Be nice to Paul White. That's his slogan.
I hate the Big Slow.
But he hates you.
Good.
He told me.
But I liked one part of Team Angle I liked the most was the actual split of the faction. When Kurt says, when they chant "I suck," it's because they respect me. When they chant "You suck," it's because you actually suck.
Yeah,
which is just really good. So yeah, Team Angle for me, number 3.
And your number 4, Reese. I'm curious on this one.
It's between 2. Do I pick one as an honorable mention? Or do I...
You only get one, Reese. You get one. It's Mount Rushmore. You only get 4. You can't carve out another spot. You got to build another mountain.
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm just thinking, do I pick one as an honorable mention? And then that means the other is my 4th. Because I like my older wrestling as well. Everybody knows that. Okay. I'm going to go... Number 4 is the faction you should have picked.
All right, let's see.
The Heenan family.
I was gonna honorable mention them that, but that was one because I said I didn't really see some, and I give you a lot of credit because I knew I was gonna mention that because I was like, oh, Heenan family. And I remember I was talking to Nikki about it too. I was like, there's so many members of that family, and trying to find it.
I honestly thought you were going to. I was like, I'm surprised he's not mentioned it.
Well, the reason being is this. I always felt like the Heenan family never felt like they never felt like a stable. It was Bobby with a bunch of different people coming out at like 6 different points of the show. So whereas all the other groups that I named came out together or they worked together, it just seemed like Bobby had like Andre the Giant and the King Kong Bundy was one of them. Like he had a million. Yeah, like he was just at a million different points that he just never. I never felt like as a group they were working together to beat up somebody. They were just kind of maybe it was 1 or 2 in the group, but like the Don Callis family feels more like what I would have expected the Heenan family to be.
I think it was just about, like, as you say, it was about the time as well. Like, they were booked differently, like the shows. But you look at the talent he managed. Like, for me, my favorite partnership is for Heenan is Heenan and Perfect. Like, that'll always be my favorite.
Yep.
But I actually thought Heenan and Rick Rude was incredible. Like, it fit really well. And no coincidence that Rick Rude was the first champion that Bobby Heenan managed in WWE. And rightly so. But it was the work with Andre, getting Andre into a deserved WrestleMania main event that he really did earn. Getting Haku over as a top heel was outstanding. Unfortunately, there's people like Hercules and a certain other bald man who had no talent. But there
And I
were
think
some members of his faction that was crap. But you look at the key elements, the Brainbusters, who I brought up on my tag team Mount Rushmore with you, if you remember, like for WWE only, because you tried to change the rules.
This is WWE only too. Whatever.
But like, these are genuinely top guys he managed, and only a handful of them in his faction were just spaces. But the rest of them were great. But like, I like.
Fair.
That's true. But like, when you look at, like, for me,
They should be. Like, they fucking should be.
The Heenan family for me is like how I would have done it and kept it is Bobby is the main guy, obviously. I would have kept Andre because it worked. Perfect, Rude, Haku, the Brainbusters, and this might get a shock out of people. I would have made the call early. I would have stolen him from WCW. I would have put the natural Dustin Rhodes in the Heenan family as well. I actually think as a heel, talented wrestler, talented character, I know obviously Goldust was great. But I just feel like the way the natural under Bobby Heenan would have been chef's kiss. Either that or stunning Steve Austin, because at the time it was perfect. But it's only two I would generally put in there. And the honorable mention, obviously, was the Ministry of Darkness, because how can you choose the corporate ministry over the Ministry of Darkness?
Because that combined them all. Because you had the corporation and you had the ministry, and then you get the corporate ministry, which is the best of both worlds. And you get all the power because you have all the money. You have the money, and then you get the dark guy who can embalm you and kill you and do all the
quality over quantity. Or quantity over quality.
The corporate ministry was a disaster.
Look at that
It was a disaster. Yeah, it was horrible.
You know what? You know, Big Boss Man's gonna make you surf some hard time. You keep talking all that shit on the ministry.
No, the only person who makes me serve that is Deonna Purrazzo.
Unbelievable.
But in terms of this faction really was poor, and the reason why it was poor was it was exactly as Sean said about the NWO. It was too crowded. Nobody had genuine storylines, and even the main freaking heel was overshadowed by a bitch in a suit. Taker was meant to be the main part of this faction, and he was completely isolated by Shane and his oversized ego. Horrible faction. So not even Rock got that bored that he went and buried King Bob. Sorry, my name's Billy. That says all how bad the corporate ministry is.
Unbelievable.
Nick, you hurt my feelings.
How dare you? How dare you insult my Mount Rushmore?
But I mean, to be fair, I respect it. I respect it, dude, but I just hate the corporate ministry.
Fair enough. Reese, pleasure chatting with you.
Nice seeing you, gents.
Good seeing you, Reese.
Sorry for breaking your heart with the Hart Foundation.
You don't sound sincere.
Unbelievable. After he talked all that shit on the corporate ministry, yeah. Fuck the Hart Foundation.
I'm dying because I just see I can hear it in your voice. You're just like, oh, you're gonna crap on mine? Well, crap on yours too. We're out. That's why we didn't pick it.
It's like the wedding singer will have the microphones. So you will listen to every word I have to say.
Or old school. Every now and then. Yeah.
Andrew Runter said no love for the oddities. You remember the oddities?
No.
Oh man, Kurgan, Giant Silva, who didn't do anything. I didn't think he ever met. He was huge too. Golga, who was actually Earthquake, Paul Tenta. And then Luna Vachon was in that. And I think I'm missing somebody.
So you put the polls up too early because look at that. Somebody put a Mount Rushmore with DX up there. See?
And Rusin, you missed it. Look at that one. Road Warrior. I think she did tag teams.
No, I mean, you can extrapolate from that. Hardy Boys.
But yeah, I mean, you
had people.
consider Paul Ellering part of the Road Warriors and Spike Dudley part of the Dudley Boys, or Stacy Keibler is part of the Dudley Boys.
Oh, don't even get me started on Stacy Keibler. I had such a crush on her.
So I'm sure you had that photo of her with the tag titles.
Look, man, we're not going to talk about it. That's all in the past now. I'm a happily married man. We're not going to get into like Sean's infatuation with Stacy Keibler. We're just going to say that she's got legs that don't quit.
well, you know, there's someone else that agrees with me. The Hart Foundation sucks. Cat in the chat.
Cat's my new friend.
But yes,
I don't think they suck. Like I can't say they suck though. It's just
no, I know she
it didn't work for me. You
it
know
didn't
what
work
I mean?
for you, brother. But no, speaking of happily married men, I am happily married man as well. I'm gonna bring in my happily married wife.
Be cool, everybody. Be cool.
A few things. You called him Paul Tenta. It's John Tenta. John Tenta. How dare you? Uncle Fred, his best friend, Uncle Fred.
I almost called him Paul Teodoro. It could have been bad.
It could be Paul Teodoro. I have to go back to the ministry because I have to. Again, our love language is us shitting on each other. And I love you immensely, but girl. Everything you said you liked about the ministry or the corporate ministry was the ministry. The whole thing is like when Undertaker steals Stephanie and puts her to the cross and Stone Cold comes out and he burns the fucking teddy bear. That's all it was me all along, Austin. Everything you like. Again, if you brought up how they stole, I forget his name before he was Midian, but they stole Midian, whatever he did, and then made him hit, and then Viscera, they stole Viscera, and like the acolytes that were with Don
they abducted people.
And with the acolytes, but when they left Don Callis or Don Callis left or the Jackal, whatever you want to call him, so you like everything pre-corporate ministry. So it's not corporate, Dennis.
No, because then they ran things as the corporate ministry. How dare you? How dare you insult my corporate ministry love?
Because wasn't it Hog and Pig that they both were the Godwins? Any whoosies, but like corporate ministry. Also, I am going to take credit because we did actually have a sort of production meeting about us talking about factions. I said the Wyatts, and you're like, really? And I was like, yes. Early days, Bray cutting those promos. Again, I say Brody Lee forever. And then you have your big heavy having Eric Rowan there. Like they were just so good. And when he passed away, we went down that rabbit hole. I think I rewatched every single one of his promos and it was like, oh God, he was so good. And I wish that Vince let him, fly. And I think he should have beat John Cena. I think he probably should have beat The Undertaker. I think he was so good and was not given the credit of how good he was. Which makes me sad all day because obviously we don't have Bray. when we don't have Brody like John. It's this one's hard to talk about, but like going back and watching those early vignettes, like even when they were like teasing on NXT, and then you're watching these promos, he has a sheet mask and it's like, we're here, and like the light bulb, you're like, what did I just watch? Like, they were so interesting. And I know then we kind of went the good and the bad, and he was, I feel like, kind of hamstrung. And like the Firefly Funhouse match with John Cena is, to me, underrated. I've probably watched that more times than I should probably admit, but that was such a chef kiss to me. I think he was so creative and could have been so much more, and that group could have been so much more. And I'm sad that they broke up and then got back together and they inserted Randy Orton, which I feel like they didn't need to do, like, or they should have put Luke Harper in that match. That should have been like a 3-way. Something about that didn't jive and all the other stuff. But early days Wyatt. And again, was it Battleground 2016 when again it was the Shield and the Wyatts staring at each other, and I just feel like it was so electric. And then I feel like even though watching it on TV, you're like, this is big. Something about to happen should happen. Give it to me. And then my other side, really quick, obviously the Shield. Y'all know how much I love Seth Rollins. I think the Seth Rollins turning on the group. But like them first coming out, you don't know who they are. They're all in masks. They're helping CM Punk, but then kind of didn't follow CM Punk. And then they did help the Authority and then broke away. But like those early vignettes, and you hear you. And I'm sad that Roman held on to this music way too long. But when it hit and you hear, you hear like them saying Sierra Hotel India Echo Delta Lima Shield, and you're just like, oh, and they come and they're like, and then coming through the crowd felt different when that first started, and them doing the shaky cam, like holding it, and they were talking, and then I went to this person, they're talking, I went to this way, they're talking, like it just felt so new and such a fresher breath air that point in WWE needed so greatly. And again, then if you want to talk about making stars impact, like, again, those are 3, I agree. I believe, Sean, you said like Hall of Famers.
Oh, they are. All 3 of them will be in the Hall someday.
I hope Mox comes back, but like, again, I can't think really of a faction.
Will Mox get in the Hall of Fame without coming back?
Well, is it going to be like 20 years down the road when he's an old man?
That's what I'm saying. Like, without him coming back and doing another run, I don't know. It's interesting.
Will he bleed then?
He's bleeding
He
right
has to bleed at the whole.
That was on our show. That somewhere John
Give us an induction speech.
What's it? The American Arts. Like, what's the people that take the blood? American
Heart Association?
No, not the Heart Association. I digress. Go on.
Any whoosies, but talking about like putting people over or doing whatever, like this again, they all held the belt on the same show. Like, I can't think of another faction that built up such. All 3 members have gone on to the success that they've had. And then my number 1, I know Sean brought it up, DX. I don't know if this is the second or third iteration. And Reese, you keep me honest, babe. To me, it's after WrestleMania 14. HBK drops the belt to Stone Cold. Triple H comes out, cuts the promo, and he's like, when you're looking to rebuild, you look to your blood, you look to the click. X-Pac comes out, and he's like, tell him something, kid. And then X-Pac, Sean Weltman, whatever, I think he was calling Sean at the time, but him cuts the promo, like, Eric Bischoff, this is you. You think I couldn't cut the mustard? And he shits on Hulk Hogan. And then later at the night, that's when the Outlaws join, and it's the 5 of them. 6 of them.
No, 5.
5.
I was
Outlaws?
Yeah, Outlaws.
Yeah.
Sean, Triple H, China. So 5.
No, Sean was.
Sean's out. He was hurt.
I'm sorry. I'm saying Sean Waltman. Sean Waltman as X-Pac. So you have X-Pac, Triple H, Outlaws, China.
Yeah.
That is my iteration of DX. I remember watching that WrestleMania. I remember being, what's going to happen next? And again, I'm very much clear, Triple H person. He comes out, cuts that promo. Sean Waltman comes out, cuts his promo, and that's what Triple H calls it, the genesis of D-Generation X.
Mm.
And I was like, I will follow this to the end of my days. And I famously said that I had that Road Dog shirt. I was like, doing it in the doghouse. 11-year-old shouldn't have that shirt. But like that iteration, and you said it's like 2 years or whatever, but like those were my guys. I begged every Monday night. It was like, you need to go to bed. But I was like, but Triple H is going to be in the main event and I need to stay up because I need to watch. And I begged my father every fucking Monday to best be able to get to the end of Raw. So like DX, that iteration is my number one.
Fair enough. Yeah. Little Triple H shocker. They're your favorite.
I know. So I think that's me. I can't go home, but I can't say here goodbye.
Oh, they're counting. I was wondering about that. They were counting. Okay, they were counting version 1 as the one with Rick Rude.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, because he said that. I guess so. Yeah, because it's interesting.
It's like the pilot episode of a show. You just kind of forget about it. Like
The insurance policy, because I remember a lot of that was this actually. So this time was really when I I had a period where like 3 to 5 years I stopped watching wrestling and then get back into it. And this is the period where I really started getting back into it, and it was right around the Hell in a Cell, if I remember correctly, like the Hell in a Cell. Shawn Michaels, the original Hell in a Cell, Shawn Michaels Undertaker, which was based off of the Bret Hart Undertaker match and all this other stuff. But basically, long story short, like there was parts where I think leading up to that match, HBK and DX with Rick Rude put the Undertaker in a body bag, and like he sat up in the body bag. It's like one of the only times he was in a body bag in his whole career. And like I just remember that moment of like Undertaker sitting up in a body bag, which freaked me out. Now Darby Allin does it every week.
it's funny, the memories and the catalyst of like your iterative wrestling history. So I always joke, as somebody that lived through the Monday Night Wars, you have not experienced life until you set the VCR to record WCW in the bedroom, because you're going to watch in the living room, but you couldn't take the chance of switching channels. So you watch the first hour of WCW, then you watch the 2 hours of Raw, and then you flip back over to catch the last whatever was, because WCW always ran long, and then you go back and watch the tape. Like, you have not lived life until you watched wrestling in that way.
I just remember, there was a period of time when I was getting back into it. This is that time. So our house, they were doing work on our house, so we moved in with my grandparents for like a month and a half, 2 months. And there was a group of kids up the street that loved pro wrestling. And I just remember I would talk about it. And we weren't in the same town that I went to school in, so we moved out. Obviously we're like one town over, and they got me really back into wrestling. And I remember there was like 3 TVs in my grandparents' house. Not even. No, I think there's 2. And literally, so at Monday night at 8:00, I had to get my hour in of either Raw or Nitro, and it was Raw 90% of the time because I just had to pick and choose.
Nitro had a replay too, I think. And then like the other life choices that came out of the Monday Night Wars were, do I spend my $50 this month on WWE or WCW? Like, you're comparing cards, like, I need this story to go, and good times. And crazy unknown fact about Sean, just because it popped in my head, which has sparked this conversation. The reason I am back into wrestling as hard as I am is my daughter became a fan of Toto Bellas and all that stuff. And she started watching that. Then I would start seeing people I knew, like John Cena and the show and everything else. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. And then I started watching again. I'm like, well, we got to watch Raw and SmackDown now. And now I got a podcast. But anyhow.
How things snowball, right? Speaking of which, perfect segue, buddy. Thanks for joining me. This has been a blast doing factions with you. But before you get out of here, we got more people in the chat. Let everyone know where they can find you and your awesome stuff.
Yep. So we're on X, TikTok, YouTube, this is Matt's thing, so he knows he rambles these off like nothing. But Matt Jackson and I, we have our podcast. It's called If We Had the Pencil. Every Tuesday we cut new content and drop our weekly show there. We're very strictly main roster WWE. So everybody, by all means, like, feel free to check us out. And if you got a call up that you want the unbiased opinion on, because we don't even watch NXT out there. So like I'm starting to learn that it's more unique than I thought it was. But a lot of, so unvarnished truth coming from us, but we have a good time. Feel free to listen. Like I said, If We Had the Pencil, just like and subscribe. That's all we ask.
Yeah, no, it's an awesome show. And I love it. Again, it's like, it's a different perspective because again, it's like some of us watch NXT, watch whatever New Japan, X promotion. You guys are just main roster, so you're just seeing everything fresh, which is a lot of how it's presented in WWE. So it's really neat to see that perspective. So check out If We Had the Pencil. Make sure you like and subscribe to them. Sean, it's been a blast having you.
Thanks for having me. Whoop that trick and all that good stuff, man. Like, that's my new hotness. I ain't even gonna lie to y'all, man. Like, Trick Williams is like won me over bigger than big can be. So of all the call-ups, man, he just resonates with me. I love that dude. So
I feel you on that one. Yeah, he's doing a lot of great things. Sean, pleasure. Catch you next
time. Thanks for having me. Thanks. Good luck, everybody. Have a good one.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sean from If We Had the Pencil. Make sure you check them out. Awesome channel. But let's get out of here. It's been a fun one. Make sure you smash the like, subscribe if you haven't already. Goes a long way to help the show. But thanks for joining us for Mount Rushmore Monday.
Who's your hero? Who's your king? Who's the one that makes you swing? Four faces carved in stone, the legends that we all own. Power slams and flying knees. Who brings the crowd down to its knees? Mount Rushmore Monday.